Hello, and welcome to episode 108 of the Pos-cast with Rabbi Shmuel Posner, myself, Seth, and Rabbi. How are we doing today?
Baruch Hashem, I'm exhausted. Exhausted. Yesterday I went with Eytan, which we'll introduce in a minute, and Zev and Akiva.
Oh, that does sound exhausting. Continue.
That's even before we got moving. Picked them up, and we went to the Boston Shul, down there at the 7 o'clock minyan, and drove to the Ohel, Crown Heights, and back. So we'll get into the details of what happened, but I just want to say why I'm exhausted is because I was driving on the way home. So on the way there, I drove half the way.
You Meshuggahs didn't pick up the wheel for him?
Hold on a second. Wait. Let me explain what happened. On the way there, I turned to Eytan. I said to Eytan, "You're going to drive halfway." So halfway through, he started driving, and that was fantastic. On the way home, so I'm driving. I figure I'll do halfway. As I'm driving, I look over because he's on the front seat and he's sleeping.
Oh my goodness!
And the poor boy, he probably woke up at like 6 o'clock, and he was, I told him on Monday, I said, go to sleep early because you're gonna have to drive tomorrow.
I did go to sleep relatively early, but I woke up at 5:30. I got probably around like 6 hours of sleep, but I had been awake for a long time at that point. I don't think I could have done the driving. Even on the way there, when I was doing the driving, I was like, it was a little bit, there was like a few minutes there where it was a little tough, but I pulled through that.
How far your students have fallen, Rabbi. I would never put you in such a situation.
He didn't put me in that situation. He just fell asleep.
What can you do?
It's okay. Baruch Hashem, we made it back. So we got back at like 1 o'clock or 12:30, 1 o'clock. And then I didn't finish Rambam, so I had to do Rambam. So I went to sleep probably 2, 3 o'clock. And I slept late. Because I said, I'm waking up, I have to have a full day today. So I woke up at 5:30, said, no, I'm not. I woke up at 7 o'clock. And got to the 8 o'clock minyan. Anyway, so other than that, we had a fantastic trip. It was amazing. And so people wonder, like, how do we select our guests for the Pos-cast? So I think it's a whole process. You got to fill out an application. There's an interview. It doesn't work that way. So yesterday in the car, we were talking about it. And I think Zev said, like, why don't you get Eytan to be on the Pos-cast? I said, okay, Eytan, what are you doing tomorrow? Since he's graduating on Friday, he's pretty much not doing much, I think, the whole week. So this is just, this is great. So here we go. Eytan Mobilio from Boston University for the past 4 years. But originally from New Jersey. Where in New Jersey?
West Orange.
West Orange is right. I knew that. Right.
Well, originally from Warren, New Jersey. But more recently, West Orange, New Jersey. Well, since I was like 7, West Orange, New Jersey.
Once again, is his volume loud enough?
It's as loud as it's gonna get. It's just the way that he talks.
Well,
is it quiet? Should I use like the computer microphone instead of the?
You can try it. Yeah.
How do I switch it?
You hover over your microphone on the bottom, and then you pick from the options. So you might not be able to do that when we're recording. So.
Oh yeah, let me switch.
Yeah, so just talk louder.
All right, so
okay, I'll cut.
I turned up my volume, so maybe it was my thing. Anyway, okay, so the idea was to talk about the trip, but I think before that we have want our listeners to know who you are. I think that's actually probably more interesting. I don't know. We'll see what's more interesting. They can decide what they want to hear, but we'll give them everything. So why don't you first just tell us about where you're from, you grew up, yada yada, and then we'll get to your part in Boston.
So yeah, I grew up in New Jersey. I live in a very Jewish area, so I've always been like pretty involved in the Jewish community. I went to an Orthodox Jewish day school since kindergarten through the end of high school. I was never involved in the Chabad scene up until I came to college. So for the past 4 years, I've been very much involved with Chabad. So that's been new. But Yeah, I don't really know what else. Nothing really else that interesting,
Well,
to be
the
honest.
formative moment in Eytan's Jewish journey was in May of 2022 when he went to Israel with me.
Yeah, true, true.
What happened then?
We went to Israel. It was a great time. We hung
Yeah,
out. He helped me translate all of the menus. That's what. So
true.
this was. You have to understand that Eytan before this trip was just like a quiet kid who showed up for Minion. Like we hadn't talked very much before this trip. We get on the trip, right? And so for the first day, you don't have the IDF soldiers that join the trip. And then they join. And so they obviously speak Hebrew. And so I was relying on the ones that I was friendly with to help me out with the menus because we couldn't figure out how to switch the menus to English sometimes. Like some of the
Yeah,
menus didn't have the little flag in the bottom right corner of the touch screen. And so you couldn't figure it out. We get a couple of days into the trip. Like at this point, we're probably halfway through the trip. I come to find out that Eytan speaks Hebrew. And I'm like, dude, you've been hanging me out to dry here for the last 4 or 5 days, not telling me that you could have been helping me.
yeah. I think I was the only one on that trip who spoke any Hebrew, but
Yeah, you were the only one other
I
than
was
the.
talking to a friend of
yeah,
mine about the Pos-cast, and and we spoke about Seth Hellman because he's like half the show here. And I said to him, he's the most unpredictable co-host. Like you asked me, like, what do you think we would talk about today? I have a pretty much idea. We're going to talk to Eytan about his life and Chabad, BU, Crown Heights. I didn't think we were going to talk about translating menus in Israel from English. And here we are. Oh, Hashem.
It's the
Anyway,
most important part about any vacation, figuring out where you're going to eat.
no, not true. That was not part of, okay, that was part of our trip, actually.
I will also say about the menu translation. It was just funny to me because on that trip, I think for like me and like Flora, the other BU student, and like Sam, like we were I think the only ones who found it at all like novel eating in like mall food courts and being able to eat at like these random like McDonald's and stuff. Whereas like everyone else on that trip was probably like, why are we just eating in like mall food courts?
Hmm.
And like for us, it was like a special experience. But
That's right, because they're kosher.
yeah.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about what you expected from a Jewish point of view, what you expected when you came to BU, um, what things were better than what you expected, what things were more challenging.
So I think like when I had applied to BU, like so I mean I applied during COVID times. So like when I came to visit, I mean I came to visit before like I'd gotten accepted. Um and that was like January of 2021 and there weren't like tours going on at that or at least like the day that I went there were no tours or anything. So like I didn't like go and like go to the Hillel or go to Chabad and like really talk to anyone. I was just kind of like went around campus a little bit and just like got a sense. So I never like talked to anyone about like the Jewish community or anything like that. So I guess I didn't really have like many expectations. Other than that, I had heard that there were a lot of Jews at BU. There's like this, like you can look it up and there's like some numbers say like 5,000 Jews or something, which
It's
I don't know that
4.
I've
They
heard some.
claim
Yeah, like
4.
around that's what they claim. But so like then you don't really like you're wondering where these Jews are when you're here. Um, but I guess like I don't know. I think what was sort of surprising at first was just like how many options there were as far as like even though like I didn't like take advantage of most of them. Like my first 2 years, I was only ever going to U and to the Hillel. But there was always like there was more going on, and then like everyone was always going over to like I'd heard so much about like MIT Chabad and like the Harvard Hillel and the Harvard Chabad or whatever. So it was like it felt like there was like so much going on, but then like everyone was like spread out kind of. Um, but then also like just in general when people graduated, and it felt like it got a lot weaker. Like I felt like my freshman year, like I felt like the Jewish community was very strong, But then like I realized there was really a small kind of core group that was very strong, and that kind of dwindled away.
Well, what's funny is when you came in, the community had already shrunk significantly because it was
Yeah, yeah,
really boisterous pre-COVID, particularly like thinking about Hillel more than Chabad. Like the Chabad community has pretty much stayed consistent. Um, but the like pre-COVID, it would be you'd be filling up the dining hall regularly for Shabbos dinner, and then post-COVID, a lot of people, there were a lot of the people who were really heavy in the community had graduated that year, and then a lot of people stayed home and did remote, and then when people did come back the following year, a lot of them just didn't show up because of all the masking. So it was just like a whole thing. But it was funny because at that time when you first came in was really when a lot of us started to go to Chabad more, because
huh.
things were a little bit more like they wanted us to be there and they wanted us to stay and meet people, and obviously we were being safe and like everyone was getting tested and whatever, but at the same time you felt a little bit more like free to exist as opposed to constantly,
Yes,
the way BU as a administration wanted us to all like be super afraid of
Yeah,
each other and super far apart.
yeah. It
yeah,
was sort of like a refuge. I remember that Chabad, like after
yeah.
dinner, you guys would go up to the second floor and just hang out.
Yeah, we
And
used to hang out for a long
a
time.
long time. And I go upstairs, and Hani would say, like, they're not wearing masks. I'm like, Hani, it's okay. Just let them, let them be. They're living, they're surviving.
I will. I can also say about that. Like that was one of my first. I think it might have been the second time that I met you because I had gone to Hillel for the first couple of Shabbos my freshman year, but then I went to you for Rosh Hashanah, and then again Yom Kippur, and then I started going to you for Shabbos more after that. I think it was. I think I met you on Rosh Hashanah, but I think on Yom Kippur I walked in for Kol Nidre, and like I had a mask on because that was just like every building I go and I had to have a mask on. I remember I think like I I like said hello to you and shook your hand and you're like, what are you doing with this mask on? Like take this off. Like that's one of my earliest memories of you. And so that was like very like that was obviously at the time that was very refreshing. Like yeah, like there's a lot more freedom and like you didn't have to worry about that stuff.
I
And
remember
nobody
when,
got COVID either. I didn't get COVID until we
Yeah,
went on our trip to
right in
Israel.
Israel.
yeah.
No, but when Shmuel came to meet me the first time, it was actually when the construction was going on, and he walked in with a mask on. I said, I can't take off your mask. I can't see you. It was very frustrating. And there was someone, whatever, someone in a different school, like wore them. Everything was. Someone came to a class like for eight times or something, and finally I said to them, I said, I have no idea what you look like because you never take off your mask just one time so I can see who you are. Anyway, yeah, interesting. But I do think that like towards the end, like the past year, that you feel that the Jewish community is stronger and bigger, growing.
Yeah, so I mean like that's with especially with Above West now and what Yisrael's doing over there, like that, like, and like that's a lot of people who have already like been around, but just like haven't been like involved and are now suddenly getting really involved. And like some of them are seniors and graduating anyway, but like that there's like a really strong community building out there, which is cool. And a lot of freshmen have come in and like are very much a part of things. So I think yeah, I think things are definitely rebounding right now.
Yeah, yeah, I think the more opportunities are for Jewish life, and that's the way the community is going to grow because people hear from other people because all these kids that are coming here are coming from a Jewish community, and they go back home and people ask what's going on at BU, and these kids are saying, yeah, it's a stronger community, more kids are going to come. So, in your personal, in addition to the community, you personally, as far as in, advancing your Judaism, or like what kind of challenges you feel coming to college, what kind of things were not expected, not expected.
I guess like I didn't necessarily know the extent to which like Judaism like would be at the center of my college experience. I guess like how like obviously I knew that I was going to be doing things for Shabbos and whatever, but like even like just coming for like classes with you or doing like JLF classes at Hello, like I guess I didn't necessarily like expect to like, because I having gone to an Orthodox school, like half my day was Judaic studies, and so like I guess I didn't necessarily know like was that going to continue. I mean, obviously not half my day, but like just being like doing a regular Torah class and stuff. Like I didn't know like was that going to be part of what I did, and like yeah, I just remember like one time I was at Friday night with you, and you were like, so what days can you learn? And like, cause I think whenever the Jewish U class that you were doing was like Monday that semester, and I think I had said like Monday and Wednesdays were good, and so you're like, oh, so just come to class on Monday, and then like yeah, I mean I've got to class pretty much every week since then for the past 4 years.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you definitely were one of the most consistent students coming to classes.
I think I only missed like one, like or like I might have missed like another couple because like on days that I wasn't like in town, but I can remember like one time I had an exam during the block. Other than that, I don't think I ever didn't come.
I'm laughing because I don't think there's any other student that would actually know how many classes. Like say, I missed 3 classes.
I
No, that's just saying that
I don't
you
know.
were so consistent that you could say I missed 1 class. That's fine. Well, you're graduating, so you got to keep it up. You got to find Torah classes where you are, or find stuff online. There's
You should
always
start
always
an alumni class, Rabbi. Get
Ooh,
like a Zoom class going.
okay. Okay.
I would be a part of that.
I would too. That's why I said it.
All right. Then we're gonna do it. I have to just figure out when and the details. And yeah.
Sunday morning, 4:30 a.m. Right after you've woken up.
that 6 a.m. class would be perfect for davening. Yeah. Uh-huh. So did you feel that through all the class and all this kind of stuff, did you like become more observant or take like your I don't know how to ask this question exactly, but like I hate saying that you grow in your Judaism. I hate growing because I mean, when something grows, I think about a tomato or a carrot. But did you?
I I think so. Like I think just the fact that like coming from an environment where like everybody that I know and interact with is Jewish, and like I was in school from 8 to 5 p.m. with just Jews, and like doing like just doing yeah like Jewish studies classes half the day and stuff. Like going from that environment to then being in Boston, where like most people aren't Jewish, and like I'm not like forced into like anything. Just like going from that one environment to the next, and like still maintaining like Jewish stuff. Like I think that has made me stronger in that sense.
No, it's very true. That's very true. Very true. And it's always that's how I feel whenever somebody graduates, when they come in at a certain level of observance, and like the more observant kids, so it's always like what how are they going to look when they leave, and if they're maintaining what they have, that means that it becomes stronger because, like you said, it's an adverse environment for someone to keep Shabbos and kosher and come to Torah classes. So yeah, when somebody leaves, like when you're leaving, it's like okay, Baruch Hashem, he came 4 years ago, leaving, and there's no casualties, there's no. It's actually much better than it's stronger, it's better. Yeah, once it's tested,
Yeah.
and yeah. I think that's why I tell whenever parents come with their kids and they want to is it a strong community? I don't know. I said, look, it's up to your son, your daughter. It can be the strongest community in the world. They're away from home. They're surrounded, like you said, the majority of their day they're spending with non-Jews. It's like, why are you asking about the Jewish community? It's not like they're moving into a Jewish community. They're moving into a school that the Jews are a small minority. And the classes they're not going to sit next to Jews or sit next to whoever they sit next to. Their study groups will be whoever they have to study with. Some of them are dictated by the professors. So why you? It's really your kids. Do you have you educated them and guided them and inspired them that wherever they are, that's who they're going to be. And I know it's challenging. It's very difficult, and it's a lot of a lot of times that there is to trip up and to come out and say even stronger. That's powerful. It's amazing.
It does feel like the rare type of experience, right? Where it certainly felt like, I mean, at least when I was there, that most of the students kind of went from being more religious to less religious as time went on in college, and then maybe later in life they kind of find their way back, and then there's just kind of that rare couple of students where they show up and maybe they weren't as observant, or maybe they were observant but not super like fully into it, and then as time went on they got more and more. I mean, there were a couple of kids, like obviously Eytan, we just talked about him, but like there are a bunch of people at Hillel and at Chabad that I can think of that I went to school with that had that same experience.
So I'm not sure. I think, I mean, I agree with you to the degree that a lot of students that come in are less observant, become more observant. People that are not exposed to it and don't even know what things are. I mean, this you can see people that are starting to put on tefillin every day, or or more regularly. I don't say they watch for doing it every day, but taking on things they never heard of before they came to college. And yeah, I mean, the rule of thumb is this: if you come in, you're not observant, there's a good chance, or there's a relatively good chance you'll become more observant. You come in very observant, you're probably going to go down a bit. I mean, it doesn't have to be that way, but it just seems to be that way. College life is to challenge the things you believe in, the things that you were brought up with. And if you're an observant kid, if you can catch them and bolster and if you're asking questions and there's no one there to give you the answers, then you obviously it's going to change how you observe. But if someone is encouraging the questions and answering the questions and dealing with it and talking about it, then it can strengthen a person. So so there is that quote unquote the danger of sliding when you come to school observant, but there's also a great chance that you'll become you're challenging everything. So challenge the things you do believe in, and challenge how real is it, how much you connect to it, and how much more you understand it. It can make it even stronger than it was before. Because especially if you go into Chabad and you never were at Chabad, it has a whole different approach, a refreshing and deeper approach to Judaism than most kids going to some day school. And again, I'm not blaming the day school as much as the fact that you're doing that until you're 16, 17, 18. And when do you start asking questions about life? Not when you're 12, when you're 13 or 14. You just go along with what they tell you. Then when you become 18 and you see there's a big world out there and you start, thinking about it. And, especially college is supposed to teach you how to think and think critically. So if you're thinking critically, you say, why am I doing this stuff? And so when you start learning in a manner that addresses those questions openly and provides you with thought and material to think about in a positive way, then it makes you stronger than you were before. Okay, so one of the things that we do here on a regular basis at the Chabad House of Greater Boston is we go to the Pagisha once a year. And in baseball, it's three strikes and you're out. Eytan was 4 strikes and he was out because he never made it to Pagisha.
Oh,
I mean,
So
yeah,
so even though he'll graduate with honors and all that, but that would be like a mark on his record that he was in Boston for 4 years, an active member of Chabad, or maybe the most active member of Chabad, Gabbai for 2 years. 2 years, right? Yeah, since
yeah,
Yonah Baruch left. 2 years to Gabbai.
yeah.
Never went to Crown Heights. Never went to the Rebbe's Ohel. So like, whoa, that would be that just I don't know what would have happened. So we planned this a couple of weeks ago. We're gonna go have a Crown Heights trip, go to Ohel. We talked about it a month ago actually, and it was never very clear exactly when it's gonna happen. We knew it's gonna happen after graduation. We had a few false starts when we thought we'll go this day, go that way. Finally, we're gonna go on Monday, and then Sunday I found out that this fellow actually, his name is Sam Schlossberg of blessed memory, who came to the Chabad house, no, before I was here. When the Chabad house first started, he lived a few blocks away. I'm not sure how we found out about it. I wasn't here then. This is talking about 1980. Chani and I came in 1985. So this guy shows up at the Chabad house. So when I came here in 85, there's already a full million of people that were coming here. Most of them were students, undergrad or some grad students. But there were also some community people, because when the Chabad house opened, you got to remember, the Chabad house opened, the only shuls there were in the closest shul to the Chabad house was the Young Israel.
Mm.
There's nothing down. There's no Orthodox shul in the downtown area. That was pretty much it. There's no Chabad in Cambridge. There was really nothing. So there were some community people that used to come in. There's a couple of older people, but I guess maybe they heard there's a Chabad house and they wanted to help support it when it first started. When I came here, they were regular members here. We inherited them, and Sam was one of them that was here. And it was then there was a chevra of people like a little bit older, because he stayed on for years afterwards, and then other people, there was nothing going on in Brooklyn or Brighton either. There was no Chabad there. There was a school, but and there was a shul in Brighton, but there's no outreach going on in town except for the Chabad house, whatever. And we did a lot of stuff in the community. Right, Prus doing stuff, gave classes, whatever. There was stuff going on, but it all emanated from this Chabad house. So, So this guy was part of that group, which went on for, I don't even know how many years after, and 5-10 years later. And then finally he moves off to Brooklyn or Brighton. And he passed away suddenly, unexpectedly, on Sunday. So the funeral was on Monday. So Sunday night, I told Eytan, we're going to have to postpone the trip to Tuesday. And so it finally happened. We got into the car at 8 o'clock and we drove west-south. Because you go west
Southwest?
first, and then you go south. Huh?
I thought you were thinking of southwest there. But
What?
Yeah, west-south
thought
is
you
a
were
weird
like-
way to say it. Most people say
Yeah.
southwest.
Southwest.
Yeah, but it's wrong. We went west and south.
I guess.
What do
But
you mean?
technically, you go south first, no? Because don't you have to get on to... Well, I know. I guess the Pike does go immediately west. Huh?
The Mass Pike goes west. Let's go south. Maybe go south.
Generally, we went southwest
Yes.
in the general direction of southwest.
We went west, south. West, south. Anyway, so our first stop obviously is the Ohel. The reason the Ohel is the first stop is because it's on the way. If you're going south, you come to. It makes sense to stop there. We could do that at the end of the day, but as we spoke about, since the custom is not to eat on the day you go to the Ohel, it makes more. It just like to go without eating a whole day and then go to the Ohel at the end. But anyway, that's how every group that I've ever taken, we've always stopped at the Ohel first, and So, what was your impression?
I had no idea what the Ohel was like even what it looked like or what went on there. So that was I had zero expectations for that. So it was it wasn't a very busy day. So it wasn't because it was a random Tuesday and we got there at noon. So there wasn't so many people around. I imagine Kedisha, it's a very different experience going there. But the only thing I knew was that you write a note and you leave the note. So doing that was, that was the only thing that I knew that I was going to do. And that ended up being, I guess, I don't want to say more meaningful than I thought it was going to be, but I guess sort of. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't really have many expectations going into that in particular.
Yeah, I don't know. I always struggle with trying to prepare people to go to the Ohel, and then when you prepare them for it, you sort of telling them this is what you should experience, which that's not the way it should be. It should be if you know enough about the Rebbe, you know about the idea of going to daven by a place of a holy person. You should have it should be a personal experience, something that's not something somebody dictates you and tells you this is how you feel. This is what happens here. This is why it happens. But I think that's the general idea. It's interesting to talk about writing the note. You see, I find that fascinating because I think writing the note is you have to think, what do I need in life? What's important to me? Because you have the thing that people are ill or this or that or have technical problems. And you think about if you had a chance to have a personal audience with Hashem, what would you say? Here's an opportunity. You're going to the burial place of a tzaddik. Lag BaOmer is going to be on Friday. Thursday night, they're going to be, I don't know how it works now after the terrible tragedy a couple of years ago, but there'll be tens of thousands of people going there. And so they're going, why are they going there? Okay, because it's the yard site of Rav Shimon Yochai, and and he's buried there, and great things are said about him, lots of stories about people needing things, getting blessings when they go there. But when you're actually going there, what do you want? What are you thinking about? So when you're sitting down outside, in the tent near the Ohel, and you're writing a note, you're coming up with who am I? Where am I? And where do I want to be? What do I need? Where am I going? And it's interesting how different people write. Some people sit there and write pages and pages and pages. And it's whatever's going on in their life, they just think they want to express it, and that was really when you met the Rebbe in person. The same thing also with. I always tell this to the student: it's not what the Rebbe did to you, like the Rebbe said something to you, or the Rebbe made an impression on you. It's when you were standing in front of the Rebbe, you were being truthful to yourself, because you're standing in front of somebody whose whole life is truth. It's Torah, it's God. There's no self about it. There's no personal gain from anything the Rebbe did. He wasn't looking for something from anybody. He was just doing what Hashem wanted and making the world a holy place and bringing Mashiach to the world. And he wanted everybody to do that. So when you're standing in front of the Rebbe, it's okay, I know what the Rebbe represents. How do I fit into that picture? And that's what people say when they get nervous when they go to the Rebbe or thing like that. What was it from? The Rebbe, you watch the videos, when someone approaches the Rebbe, it's very kind, very gentle. There's nothing abrupt, nothing aggressive. The Rebbe is just very kind and willing to hear and to take whatever people are saying. So what's going on in the other person's mind? The person's mind is, what do I want to say? When I'm face to face with truth, what do I have to offer up? What's really bothering? What's really important to me? What do I care about? And to some degree, that's the same thing. I know they put the television screen in there when you walk into the front room, and many people have stories of things they were asking or thinking about, like the Rebbe's talking about it. I just watched a thing a couple of days ago where this guy, I'm not going to get into the whole story, but basically there's the Rebbe sitting there and a man's talking to him, and it's about something that was about having a Torah class, and he had just talked to a friend about an issue, and they decided they're going to study Torah together, and he walks into the aisle, and the Rebbe's talking to this guy about it, and then and it was a meeting of the Rebbe with the supporters, and he says, if you zero in and you look in the corner of the screen, he's there as a 9-year-old child. It's so when he walks into the aisle and he saw that thing, and whoa! Not only is Rebbe talking about a Torah class, which is what was on his mind, but he's actually there on the video. I just heard this week. Now, what does that mean? It's these little signs that come, the Hashgacha Pratis things that Hashem orchestrates to strengthen what you're doing. But aside from just walking there and watching the Rebbe speak and what he's talking about, you sort of get into a space where your whole life, all the narishkeit you're involved in, and everything you're doing is here you are. This is Judaism, pure, unadulterated, that applies to your life, applies to how you live. I think that's to give you that mindset. So when you go when I go there, I know I'm talking too much now. When I go there, I don't want to talk to people. just like I just want to like be there and like not have to no small talk. Okay, so we met some, so you meet somebody so you be polite, this and that. Especially if there's students there, you like to introduce you to other people to see the varying people that come to there. Anyway, that's style. So, and another thing is, I remember the first time I went to the Kotel. First time I went to the Kotel with my friend Ron Storch, who lives in Tzfat. And he said, "So how do you feel?" I said, "I don't feel anything." I don't feel anything. It's a wall. It's a small
Well, I was gonna
wall.
say like, yeah, I mean, because like I know people also do like the writing the note at the kotel, and I don't think, I mean, I've been to Israel 3 times. I don't think I ever wrote a note. So it was like I had like kind of the exact experience that you were talking about of like reckoning with like what did I want to write down, like what is important at this point, and like I hadn't done that before, so that was an interesting experience.
So
I
in a
think it's
way, even before you go into the oil, you're already like in a different. You're moving into a different space. So when you go into the oil now, like, what do you want from the Rebbe? What do you want from Hashem? So that moment is. It'll be like when you step back before you do Shema Esrei, and you think I'm going to ask Hashem for what I want. And same thing. You're stepping into the oil, and that's the moment of truth. That's the moment of complete focus. There's nothing else in the world exists. It's just you now there in front of the Rebbe's kaver, in front of the Rebbe, in front of Hashem, and like, what do you want to say? So by writing the note, that's really puts you into that mindset. It gives you that focus, and then you move on from there. Yeah, it's amazing. I think the difference between the kotel and the oil, a crazy thing to talk about is you go to the kotel, it's a wall. Okay, it's a wall that surrounds a very holy place. We're used to holy places. We go to shul. Shul is holy too. Oh, that's more holy. Okay, but how much do you feel going to shul? So now you want to feel even more. There's historical value to it. I get it. But like, so for me, having been with the Rebbe physically in this world, when I saw a wall, I'm like, this wall doesn't talk. This wall doesn't teach. It's a wall. I know what it's about. I've heard the Rebbe talking about it so much. I know what it's about. But when I'm with him, I can connect to it. And over there, until someone said to me, I said, trust me, I live here. I've gone there numerous times. When you start davening there, you start feeling it. I said, okay, I hear you. I hear you. And perhaps that also is with the oil also, because you went to, in a way, I don't regret not having prepping you more, because I think that's much more generic. You just went there, you had some idea what it was, like your clues, like, oh, what is this? You know what is going on. And then what happened. Baruch Hashem. And continue. People, I know people that I've introduced to the oil, and then I'll get a picture. I'm at the oil now, like, oh, interesting. Because people feel that feeling you're talking about of connecting to yourself, connecting to Hashem via the Rebbe, whatever it might be, is something that, it's a valuable part of your spiritual health. All right. So then we went to Crown Heights.
And we got the Ohel cookies.
Yeah.
yeah, I was going to ask about the cookie.
Yeah,
I want to make sure you.
the mythical cookie.
Okay, we got the old cookies. Good.
I think that was just important to note.
It was,
I
right?
don't want anyone to think that we left without getting the cookies.
Right. We get a slew of comments. You didn't give them the oil cookies.
Yeah.
Actress for that. All right, on to Crown Heights we go.
What, you want me to
Yeah,
describe what
I want
happened?
you to continue the tour, and description and impression. Like, what did you think Crown Heights was? The things you met, the people you saw.
I mean, for Crown Heights in general, like, I mean, I've never been to like the Crown Heights area, but like I've been to Brooklyn, so it's not like that wasn't like the most foreign thing to me, I guess. Like I mean, Akiva, who we were with, had never really been to New York, so it was like that was much different. And that's also like it's not like I was never gonna have like the opportunity to go back because like I live close enough. Um, But as far as like what we did, like, so I mean, this first stop we made was the Sofer. I think that was like that was very cool. Like that whole operation that was going on in the Sofer's basement was like I don't know. I never really like thought much about how tefillin are made and what that process is like. But like seeing like the actual skins and like him starting to like mold them and just the technology that he had to do all the stuff and like he showed us the parchment with the mistake that he made and like that was one of the coolest things that I think I saw yesterday.
So you guys need to know that this is a special thing. I didn't even plan on it. I'll tell you honestly. I called him at 12 o'clock and said, Rabbi Yossi, can I bring some guys over?
Mhm.
And he's like, no, I actually called him at 11. I called him from the car. And his wife, I guess, said, he's not here now. He'll be back in an hour and a half, whatever. So when we got to the Ohel, before he went, when we got there, I called him, Rabbi Oldtime, and I said, can we come over with some guys? He said, well, when are you going to come? I said, well, we're going to the Ohel, try to get there. He says, well, and first I told him I have a couple of students. He thought I was bringing a couple of kids. And
Mm.
like, I don't know, I don't have time. He said, and then somehow it came out, no, I'm talking about college students. He said, oh, he said, I'm going to start writing at 1:30. And we didn't get there till 2 o'clock. So I'm like, and I told him, I told him we were leaving the oil. I said, we're not going to get there by 1:30. And he was so generous with his time. It was incredible, so patient. Basically, so and because you can't take 20 people there, there's no room for 20 people to fit in there.
Yeah,
So I don't normally take people there. I haven't taken people there for a number of years. But to be able, and he has, I don't think not many people go there, but basically in Crown Heights, this guy has a house, and in the basement of his house, he has a complete fill-in factory. Starting from, well, the skins are treated upstate where they make the leather, but he has like the parchment. He starts making the parchment in one. I can't even call it a room in his basement because the whole thing is like it's a cellar basement type situation, cluttered with all kinds of stuff. He makes the parchment. He makes the bottom the housing for the parchment. He makes his own ink. And everything he describes how he does everything personally. He gets the ingredients for the ink. It's just a fascinating thing. And so you guys were a little bit like, oh, we're going after Pesach. We're not going to see the matzah bakery. Trust me,
yeah,
you guys got much better. And the matzah bakery is for sure fascinating. And God willing, next year, whatever you go see it again. You can go see it. But this was like a one that you're not going to see this anywhere. Nowhere. You're not going to see it anywhere. There's no place in the United States that someone will show you how to make the skins, how to make parchment, and the way he makes. Normally, the housing for the tefillin, the bottom, the bayit of it. I don't think anybody makes it in America. I think it all comes from Israel. Those machinery is talking about the presses that you need to make the housing. I don't think anybody makes it in the United States. Maybe they do. I'm not sure, but you're definitely not going to walk into anybody else's house in the United States and hey, come to my basement. I'll show you exactly how to make everything. Come to my garage. I'll show you how to make the straps for the tefillin and so meticulous, all different kinds. That was amazing. That was
yeah. I think that was a good substitute for the matzah factory.
yeah. It was for sure, for sure, for sure. Okay, and there you see again a Lubavitch guy. He does this for a living, and that's how he pays his bills. We came in there. He spent an hour with us, and wasn't looking at his watch or anything. Wasn't like in a rush to go anywhere. I don't know. I was amazed. I was amazed at his at his kindness and his caring and patience and excitement in telling us about it. Like it wasn't like yeah. All right, weiter.
What did we do next? Next, we got food, and then we went to 770. And 770 was another thing. Like, I've seen I'd seen the outside of it, and like you have the like stucco box in at the Chabad house that that's like shaped like 770. So I guess I knew like vaguely like what it looked like, but I kind of like expected it to be bigger and like smaller at the same time. because like once we got there and you see it from the outside, it looks fairly small. But then like once you see that it's small, then you think like the inside, like the main like shul area, like you think won't be that big. But then that was like a lot bigger than I expected. And just seeing like all the guys learning there, and it's like it was so like vibrant, I guess, and like also the communication room was very cool, like, and everything that was going on in there, and like when they showed like the video, and it's like I don't remember his name, but like the guy who like was doing it, like the communication stuff, and he was like, oh, he's just sitting right there, like that was kind of cool.
Yeah, from 1970. Yeah, yeah. And again, I think this both the Sofer and the communication room at 770 had both had the same message of using technology to for Jewish purposes, and people who are not trained. Neither of them went to college for communications or for electronics or anything like that. It just, what do I say? Need is the mother of all innovation, something like that. Anyway, it's a good. I just made that up, but that's what it is. When you need something, when you have to get something done, people figure out how they're going to do it, and that's. But yeah, but the idea that this technology was figured out, and we spoke about it yesterday, but when that first broadcast of the Rebbe's voice in Kfar Chabad, and they said it there, like people were crying out of excitement. You understand the history of the Rebbe, like the previous Rebbe left Russia in 1929, 1930. The Chassidim then, that was when the Soviet Union started, right? After the revolution, 1917. The Chassidim then thought they're never going to see the Rebbe again. It's over. And they were desperate. Like, what are we going to do? And so the Rebbe spoke to them before he left, the previous Rebbe, and spoke about, we'll stay in contact, and all these trying to encourage them. And then you have the same thing when Chassidim were living in Eretz Yisrael. A lot of them came from Europe. They moved to Eretz Yisrael, and so the same thing also. So the Rebbe becomes Rebbe in 1950. How possible was their travel across, going from Israel coming to the United States? It wasn't accessible to any simple person to be able to do that. And so they had letters from the Rebbe. They got reports what's going on. But in 1970, to be able to sit in Israel and hear the Rebbe's voice, when the Rebbe, in real time, and they're like, even if some of them had been to America and for some point, but they haven't been there, wasn't there for a year, 2 years, 5 years, and here all of a sudden they're like standing at the Farbrengen with the Rebbe. They hear the Rebbe's voice. We're so used to this. We're all sitting in 3 different places. We're talking to each other. We're not thinking, oh, it's not amazing. It's like normal. But again, even in those days, a telephone call was so expensive. If you're going to call from Israel to the United States, it costs 10, 15, whatever. It was a lot of money. So the concept it wasn't a normal concept to talk to people overseas. You wrote a letter. You said, put it in the mail, got there in 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, you got a response. Oh, shkayach. But here you're hearing the Rebbe talk literally at that moment. Like, whoa. I thought about it a lot after we were there. Like, I can only imagine what the excitement is. I'm thinking now, if the Rebbe, we can almost hear now we have a lot of recordings of the Rebbe. You hear the Rebbe talking live now, like, wow, that'd be crazy, right? We go nuts. So in the way for them, there was a separation of such a long time that they hadn't heard the Rebbe. Yeah. And then you went to yeshiva for 45 minutes.
Yeah, then I went to yeshiva, which that was also nice, and that was I shouldn't say like, I mean, this wasn't surprising because it's like Chabad people, but like how like, I mean, everywhere we went, like how like welcoming everyone was, and I guess because like we obviously like people could tell that we weren't from there, but so like the amount of times that like I had to like introduce myself and say like where I was from, and like people like say like, particularly when we went to yeshiva and like talking about their experiences and like being very inviting, and we sat down and learned with like a couple guys, and it was like, yeah, just like everyone was very nice, and like but yeah, the yeshiva in particular was like it was a very warm environment, and like it was nice to like sit down and learn for a little while. So that was cool.
And that bacher that so while we went into 770, so it was full of people learning, right? And so we found somebody who speaks English and just said to him, tell these guys what you're learning.
Yeah.
Every Lubavitcher is like at a second's notice is ready to try to teach, inspire, share with another Jew. And I thought that, and I did it on purpose. I wanted to have somebody like you. What will you say to these guys? And he was like, it's so beautiful, so articulate and to the point and explain what he's learning about. Even though it's halacha, it wasn't like any deep spiritual stuff. It still was like it was so nice. Yeah, that's a story. So, and then when he came out, an alumni sent me a picture. His wife had been there like 2 hours before we got there. She had been there. That was pretty cool. Does she live in New York, right? I guess she went with a friend to Crown Heights. She was in the communications room. Yeah. So whoever's listening to this, if you haven't been to the Ohel, if you haven't been to Crown Heights, let's do it. Let's do it. Anytime you're ready, we'll make. Well, I can't tell you, Hashem. We had our plans, Hashem had his plans, but we made it happen, and we'll make it happen again for anybody who wants to go. And we'll be back. Rebbe will be back. 770 will be back. And most importantly, we'll all be together with the Rebbe, with 770 in Yerushalayim, with the Beis Hamikdash.
Amen. With that, thank you so
Amen.
much for listening to episode 108 of the Pos-cast for Rabbi Shmuel Posner. We will see you next week.